All right, guys, welcome back to the Left of Center podcast. I am Ben Knight,
I'm Rob Roise.
and we are in this hizzy, as the kids say. We're just.
I've never heard of hizzy. What is a hizzy?
I don't know. So I think it's
Who says it?
It's
Who says
slang. It's slang for house, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. We're wiggity whack, but hey, thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast again. If you're listening to this,
By the way, I live under a rock.
Rob lives under a rock, and it's a rather large rock. Where Rob,
If you guys haven't figured out that I'm living under a rock by now, then I mean, because last time, if you tuned into the last podcast, we talked about. I've never seen Wayne's World. I've never seen Ghostbusters. We're like, all right, we're gonna. I still haven't.
He actually has no idea who Katy. Well, now he does. He had no idea who Katy Perry was.
Right. Oh, I'm up on that. I'm not sure what she sings. There's something about kissing girls.
It's something about that.
But I still haven't seen Wayne's World. Ben could not get me to do it. Not because it's not like I don't want to. It's just like
it will happen.
You know, as you get older, it's like, do I really want to spend time watching movies? And you get really selective about what. Anyway,
it's going to happen, people.
Okay,
it's going to happen.
I'm not going to fight anymore.
All right, fair enough. But anyway, we are on episode 3, and that's pretty awesome. I'm excited about that.
Oh, I'm totally stoked about that.
We're moving forward. And I did want to talk about, I had kind of some fun today. It's Sunday for anybody that's listening, just in case you want to follow the timeline.
Yep.
And my wife wanted to go out to eat for lunch, and then she wanted to go to the pumpkin patch.
Because it's fall.
Because it's fall, and that's what you do. You go to the pumpkin patch.
You got kids, you go to pumpkin patch.
Exactly. So we went to the pumpkin patch, and, you know, we paid our bits.
They charge money for this?
They charged money for it. It was
per person.
Per person. It
was charged for kids.
3 and under. Like since my son is only 3, they let him get in for free. It was 3 and under for free, and then $6 a person.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, not terrible.
Well, but it's going to cost me a fortune to go to this.
Yeah,
thing.
it would cost you a pretty.
Ben has 1 child. I don't. I have more than 1.
You have more than 1. You have 4 times more than 1.
That's right.
So that would have actually.
It's going to cost me a lot.
That would have cost you minimum, sir, of $36
Do I
to
have
get in.
to go to a pumpkin patch in the fall?
You do not have to go to a pumpkin patch in the fall.
Good. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't.
By the way, what I just said is a lie, because if you told your wife, if she knew that there was a pumpkin patch, and then you did not tell her.
No, I don't know, because I don't have her permission to talk about her.
Okay, yeah, we won't. Fair enough.
Okay,
fair enough. Well, we paid our bits. We went in, and I was kind of bummed. I thought maybe since if you paid, you're paying $6 a person, I thought they would just give you like one of those little tiny pumpkins for free or something. But no dice. No dice. They were $1. We bought him 1. We paid our $1. He got a little pumpkin.
A gourd?
We got an actual pumpkin.
Is it an actual?
How
small do they get?
It's pretty small.
Is it orange?
It's orange. But it actually looks like a pumpkin. It doesn't look like a gourd. It looks like a pumpkin.
Cool.
So we went in, and we're like, they had all these slides. They actually had it was actually kind of cool. They stacked up hay bales really high, and then they put like corrugated plastic pipe, like big, huge. They cut it in half, and then they smoothed out the bottom, and then they put it on top of these tall hay bales, and then you could slide down them.
Nice.
So my son sees them. Of course, he's like, "Daddy, slide." I'm like, "All right." So we're gonna do it. We're gonna slide, and we get up there. And, of course you have to, there's no like ladder. There's no easy way to get up there. Like I would have thought they would have stacked like, hay bales enough to make like kind of like a stair, but they didn't.
No.
And so I had to like lift him up, climb up, lift him up, climb up, lift him up, climb up. And then we're like there.
So it's like the farm fall version of rock climbing.
It really was.
All right.
It really was. I really wish I would have had like a carabiner with me. It would have been a lot helping with some rope. But so we get up there and we go down the slide, and he's like, "Yay, again." You have kids.
Yep.
Again. So we do it again. So we do it again.
Man.
So we do it again. By about the 6th time, I'm asking other kids' parents to help me up, because I'm like, "Help me, please." And so we go down. Finally, I'm just like, I look at my wife. I'm like, "I can't do it again." I was like, "Can you climb?" And I'm like, "Can you climb?" She's like, "No." Before I could even get the sentence, I'm like, "Can you?" And she's like, "No." I'm like, "All right, buddy, let's find something else to do." So we go over to this area that looks like a giant sandbox, and we look in there. Of course, it's filled with corn.
Yep.
So I'm like, right on, he'll dig that. So we get over there, and it's like, roughly, there's probably like 6 inches of corn there. It's pretty cool. I mean,
Yikes, yeah.
But he gets in. Of course, when you take corn, when you're a farmer, you're getting the corn. Stuff's dirty.
Yeah,
it's dirty,
it's
dirty,
dusty. Like
it's insanely dusty.
itchy.
So like every kid in there looks like.
man.
And this is a reference. I've never seen the movie, but there's a movie out there called Powder, and the
Mhm.
kid is like an albino. He's like white.
Mhm.
Like every kid is just covered in powder. And so he gets in. Of course, he's getting all dirty. He's having fun. We're like, all right, that's fine. And we kind of had to pull him out of there because it was just like it was getting to just be. We let him do it for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Can they even breathe in there?
Dude, is a lot of dust.
It's like,
yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's open, so it's like, it's
so
outside.
it's dissipating somewhat.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right.
So anyway, we get out of there and we go over to, we see a corn maze where we're like, right on, corn maze, right? We're like, sure, let's do it. Worst idea ever. Worst idea ever. And I'll tell you why. So we go into the corn maze. We're following everybody else. And we've been in there for probably like 10 minutes. And I'm going,
Man.
this isn't fun anymore.
Mhm.
Like, I want to get out.
Could you find your way out?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So we're walking. We're going through the corn maze. And then 10 minutes turns into 20 minutes.
Oh, no.
And then 20 minutes turns into more minutes. And I'm
Oh.
like, okay, this is stupid. Like, it's no longer fun anymore. Like, I don't want to get out of here. And so, like, it's like one of those things where, like, how it is, like, you're married,
Yeah.
So at this point, we're in the maze for like a half an hour, dude. And I'm like, all right, I want to get out of here, and I want to get out of here now.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, well, it's fun. I'm like, no, it's not fun anymore. Like, it stopped being fun like 20 minutes ago. And I figured out, like, there is no exit. Like, there isn't. Like,
You don't like walk through and find.
you don't walk through and find an exit. You literally walk through, realize that you have to come back the way you came because there's only one way to get in and out.
Oh gosh.
We did not know this. Had I known, I would have left breadcrumbs or like blood or something to get back to where we were. And so, like I said, we're in there over 30 minutes. Then it's like 35 minutes, and I'm just like, oh man. And like, I had to get back here to the studio.
Yeah, that's why you were late to the podcast.
That's why I was late, because we had to get here so we could record. And finally, I looked at my wife and said, you know what? Forget this.
Yeah.
And I was like, we got to the point where we could kind of hear cars or a tractor. They were doing like tractor hay rides and stuff. And I look over to the side and I realize if we walk 10 feet through the corn, not through the path, but just through the corn, we can get out. And I looked at her and said, forget this. And I just started walking through the corn. And so we cheated, and we got out. But here's the funny part. So we get out. And at this point, my son is covered in dust.
Yeah.
He's dirty. I'm all dirty. I'm cranky because I'm like, this is like, it went from being a lot of fun to it was terrible. Just know that. And so we get out there and I'm like, I think I hear a tractor coming. And my wife's like, I think it's probably the hayride. And so I'm like, all right. So we kind of move. There's only enough room for the tractor to come through. So we kind of have to like stand out.
It's kind of like a lane between the cornfield.
And so we get to the side and this kid comes around the tractor and he gives us the most disappointing look of all time. He's just like, just gives you the look like, really, dude? You couldn't survive the corn maze? I'm like, dude, this... And
it's like a corn prison, man.
Oh, and I just picked up my son. I'm like, I don't care. And we just walked back. But it was terrible. I did not enjoy it. And
it's like out on a farm in the middle of nowhere somewhere, or what?
No, they do it every year. It's like just in this little section just outside of town where they do it. But man, no.
That's rough. They got to warn people. There is no exit.
I'm like, there's no and I'm sure right now people are listening like, what a baby. But it's just like, you don't understand. Like I went in going, oh, we'll walk around for 10 minutes and we'll pop out the back. All right, this is fun. We'll run into a wall a few times and just like normal corn mazes. But
I've never been in a corn maze, so I wouldn't have any gauge.
Dude, this was rough.
And
did not enjoy it. So as a treat, my wife bought me a triple berry hibiscus sparkling drinky thing from Starbucks, which if anybody's ever had one, it's kind of like if you were to throw like a handful of dandelions into a glass of water and then maybe throw a couple berries in there. So
man,
but it was
like drinking rhubarb.
Dude, it was
it good?
It wasn't bad.
Did it have sugar in it?
I don't know. It wasn't overly sweet, if that's what you mean.
Well, no, are you cheating?
I'm not cheating.
For those of you who are just joining us, Ben and I have a pact going, and for one of us, it's going better than it is for the other. Ben suggested that because we are in need of losing a little weight, not a lot, just a little, that we start. Hey, Now wait a second. That's just seltzer water. I'm gonna give you a pass
it's
on
seltzer
this.
water.
But
It's
you
not
were the
pop.
one who made a big deal last week about carbonation.
I know.
But okay. But I did give you the seltzer water. Well, nonetheless, Ben made this pact with me, like, hey man, let's stop drinking stuff with sugar in it. And so I was like, cool, let's do it. And so then Ben's like, hey, let's just make it so that it's just not pop. And I was like, well, you do what you want. I'm gonna stick to the no sugar thing. But I've had pop that doesn't have sugar in it.
Judge not, lest ye be judged.
Well, whatever. We'll just get to the end, and I don't even know if it's doing any good. I just know
I don't know. I don't think I've actually lost any weight.
I haven't even weighed myself.
I don't know.
I kind of don't want to see where I'm starting at. So let's just see if something ends up noticeable after a couple weeks, and maybe I'll jump on the scale and still be shocked and appalled.
Maybe, you know what? I'm gonna hold myself accountable. I'm gonna hold myself accountable right now. That starting tonight, it is 9:35 p.m.
Mhm.
I will not have any more sugary drinks.
I thought that's what the first time
I will
was
have
for.
no more. I will have no more sugary drinks at all. No tea. No,
Okay.
no coffee with sugar in it. No, like just straight up. In fact, you know what? I'll take it a step further.
Okay.
Only water. Sir.
No.
No.
I'm not doing this.
I'm doing it. I'm
Okay,
doing it.
okay.
I'm telling you right now, people.
Only water.
Solid. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it for a solid week. Just water.
Okay, because you're not touching my coffee. I'm not doing just water because I want my coffee. If I'm going to now, some places have like this sugar-free lemonade, and I actually kind of like it.
Oh, you know what? Okay, I'm amending it. I just bought some stuff tonight. I think it's called like pure lemon or something, but there's no sugar in it. There's no sugar in
Well,
it.
see, okay, I'm okay.
Okay.
Now,
Cool.
right now, I'm drinking. I don't even know if this thing has a brand or something.
I wouldn't
but
drink that stuff. That stuff is horrible for you.
Is it?
It is. Rob
Doesn't
is
taste
drinking like
bad.
basically like one of those like sparkling waters that you get from like a Walmart or something. But like the stuff, they're like there's no sugar. It's
There
all
isn't
natural.
sugar in it, but
Yeah, but if you look, it's like biocarbonate high phosphate or like yeah. See, exactly. You just lost like 20 minutes of your life by
well,
taking.
here,
that
I'm
sip
gonna
of
drink
that.
water instead.
See, there you go. Well, I do want to actually let's get off the pop pack just because I'm curious if you guys are really if you guys are sick of hearing about that,
Just let us know.
and we'll stop talking about it.
I'm kind of curious about how many people are kind of relating to it. Like, man, how many of us really need to get off the
We
pot?
did actually get a little bit of response from people who were
Did
just
we?
like, oh my gosh, like I'm with you guys. Like, yeah, I can't remember the dude's name. There's a couple on Twitter that were just like, oh, I know
Well,
what you
Twitter,
mean. Like I'm
nobody-
trying to drink coffee and tea and trying to substitute, and it's hard, man. It is
It
good
is hard.
stuff.
So maybe if we're an encouragement to anybody out there, if you want to throw, because we're struggling with this, man, we love pop.
We love pop.
And if you guys can even just chip in and say, good job, guys, that would mean so
It's
much to us.
honestly, like pop for me, it's like the Joker to my Batman, is what pop is to me.
Yes.
And actually, speaking of that, actually, I don't know if you'll find this humorous. I don't know if anyone else will find this humorous. My wife and I were driving to and from the
Pumpkin patch?
and she was talking about like we were having a discussion about like I was trying to decide, and we actually do have listeners from across the pond over in the UK, if you will. And thank you guys for listening. I was talking about like, you know, what it would be like if I just started talking with like an accent, and I was just like, you know, I'm just going to talk like this from now on.
It's pretty good.
If people would be like, you know, I find him more intelligent, because I actually think when I actually met a British gentleman who came here on vacation, and he was talking to me, I was just like, I love this guy. This guy is awesome, just because of his accent. I'm just like,
'cause he had an accent.
he just sounds smarter than me. And so I'm like, if I were to just walk around and just say, you know, hello Rob, how are you today? And just walk around and just say, you know, oh my, there's a tree. I'm gonna go to the store, and just talk like this for like a week. If anybody would be like, oh, I love this guy, you know, or just if I were to go into a town and just talk like that and just pretend to be that person
I
like
think
all
you
the
just
time.
elevated our podcast to like epic status.
I just think it would be really awesome. And so I would just say that, you know, but my wife is looking at me, she's like, you sound ridiculous. I'm like, what are you talking about? and so she's just like, you sound ridiculous. She's like, and all of a sudden she looks over at me, and we start talking, or yeah, I'm talking in the accent.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she looks at me and she tries to do a Bane voice from
Batman?
from the newest Batman. And it didn't sound like Bane.
Mm-mm.
And I laughed so hard I think I peed a little, because it literally sounded like this. Like we all know what Bane sounds like, right? From
Kinda.
I can't do his voice,
No.
but my wife really can't do it.
Hmm.
And she goes, one of us is supposed to be in the wreckage, brother. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like Bane at all. And she looked at me and she goes, and so I wasn't expecting this. I'm like, she did a horrible Bane. And then she looked over at me and I'm like, oh, she's going to do Batman. I'm just like, I know my wife. I'm like, she's going to do Batman. And she goes, I'm Batman. It wasn't even like that. Actually, that's better than hers. And it was, and I was like, what was that? And she goes, I'm Batman. And I'm like, all right. And then she just looked over me and it literally sounded like a whisper. Well, her first attempt sounded like, who am I thinking of? He jazz player.
Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. She's like, I see trees of green. I'm
Nice.
Batman. That's what it sounded like.
Nice.
And so, like, her next attempt was like a weird whisper. Like, I don't know if you'll remember this from the second Batman. She just looked at me, she goes, I'm not wearing hockey pads. And I'm like, what the heck was that? She goes, I'm not wearing hockey pads. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, that's
What's the difference between you and me, man?
I'm not wearing hockey pads. And I'm like, I'm like, first of all, why are you talking in a weird accent and whispering? I'm like, and again, I'm going back to this. I think that I could actually pull this off and say, you know, I'm across from the pond and I like the podcast and I've been listening and my name is Nigel. And I don't know why Nigel.
Well,
everyone always goes to Nigel when they're talking with the British
Jeeves
accent.
or something. Now you started talking with some sort of other dialect than you started with before.
It's true. I
am not an expert, but
I can't. Well, I mean, I wonder if it's not necessarily British, like maybe it's UK. Maybe it still is a UK
Guys,
accent.
help us out if you guys know out there.
Guys from the UK. Does this sound like, you know, that I would be somewhere in the UK? I mean, does this sound all right?
No, that was back to the one you did.
Was
before.
that back to the one I did before? Because I was thinking, I was like, if I could actually speak in an accent, I would probably choose. Well, actually, I would choose a couple. I would choose either. Here we go. Tangent. Hello.
Yeah.
If you could talk with any actors or anybody else's voice, and pick three, who would be three that you would want to have?
Right off the top of my head here, huh? Well, everybody's gonna say Morgan Freeman, but I don't know. He has a great voice. James Earl Jones has a great voice, but yeah, but I don't know. Michael Caine, he's British, and he's
This
got like,
podcast is the size of a tangerine.
man.
I know, right? I could be Michael Caine. No, not at all. Michael Caine, that's your first one. I would actually go...
No, I don't know. You kind of...
No, you know what? Hey, no, Michael Caine's fine. I would have to... one that I would definitely do is Sam Elliott.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Elliott's got a kick-butt voice. Like,
with the southern, the deep
oh,
southern.
dude,
and
just
slow.
like him in, like, Tombstone or Introducing the Dude. I'm just like, that's an awesome voice.
I'm not sure I can comment on this one because I got to think. I got nothing.
See, another one, I would actually want to be Jason Statham.
Jason Statham.
Because he's
nice.
I'm going to beat you down. You know what I mean? You know, he's just got that, like...
That
probably wasn't very good. I'm sure anybody listening.
I'm starting to think it maybe is. When you start getting the exact persona that you want to emulate,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I love when he does that. It's like if you watch him in like the Expendables or just any of his movies, just like, you know, he's like, we're gonna come. Some guys just like, we're gonna come and kick your butt. We're gonna take your wife and blah blah blah. And he's just like, go ahead. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, that's awesome. That dude is so awesome.
I think one that nobody thinks of him as a voice talent actor, but I wonder if you were to do something like where you needed somebody's voice to give the narration of something. What if you got like Jackie Chan?
Have you heard Jackie Chan speak English? It's a little rough.
Well, I know, but he's pretty distinct.
Although
he seems to be able to laugh at himself a lot. So, and I'm not gonna do any imitations. No, here another one would be Christopher Walken. Now,
Christopher Walken would be. Do you know what? He's on my list too, and just simply because he can take a one syllable word and turn it into two. He does that. Well, you know.
Exactly.
Well, you know.
He'd be so incredibly distinct for my voiceover work that I don't have contracts for.
For the long prosperous voiceover work that does not at this time exist.
It doesn't exist yet, but let me tell you something. If I have the contracts coming in, I bet we can get them. So if anybody needs a voiceover contractor,
I'm Rob Royce and I love peanut M&Ms. You know. You know what? I'd have to go with Christopher Walken. I think
Christopher Walken's going to be solid home run choice.
I think that's actually
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson.
I don't know.
You know
I'm
what?
just throwing stuff out
It
there.
would be fun to. It would be fun to talk like Owen Wilson. I think.
'Cause he's
I mean,
got a slow California thing.
I
I
think
don't know. I can't do impressions.
in my head, I think a lot of people would go for like James Earl Jones.
They would, but that's
like,
a cliche.
but that to me, that's cliche. Like, because there's like, I want to talk like the.
Once he wasn't.
I'm your father. You know, that's. I mean, I don't know.
Now everybody's got James Earl Jones reading the Bible, reading their book, narrating their movie. Same with, Morgan Freeman too. It's like it's obvious why they went. It's obvious why they went with Morgan Freeman when they first went with him, and now everybody's going with him, and it's just like, all right.
Andy Dufresne crawled through a river of poop.
Exactly.
And, yeah, I don't know. That was a horrible Morgan
He was
Freeman.
he was an obvious choice once upon a time. Now, if you want to be cliche, get James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman. But if you don't want cliche, go with Owen Wilson. I don't know.
Exactly.
Why are we talking about this again?
I have no idea. This this conversation is going straight to the opposite of heaven.
That's probably
straight
true.
to the
Living
opposite
hell.
of heaven, and I think it's going. Yeah, exactly. To the dark place. And actually, speaking of hell, Rob, what's the hell you're always talking about?
What did you just say?
What's the hell you're always talking about?
What's the hell I'm always trying to say?
What's the hell that you're always saying?
I didn't know we could swear on the show.
If anybody was listening, I do want to point out that I did not say what it sounds like I just said.
Yeah.
I actually said,
I get it.
yeah,
I get it.
You get it. You get it.
In fact,
You
that
heard
would
it.
be an awesome podcast title.
In fact, that will probably be the
Will it?
podcast title. I
I'm-
imagine that will probably be it.
I am totally up for that. Okay. Well, so we want to know what's the hell I'm always talking about. Okay. Well, I think it's important for Christians. Now, okay, in the last podcast, for those of you who listened to it, we never even touched on a spiritual.
We never did. And in all honesty, this is a little tangent. We will get back to what we were talking about, but there will be times, and it wasn't intentional.
No,
we just
not at all.
happened to just talk, and then we were like, oh, okay, that was an episode. And then all of a sudden, then we spent the next 4.5 hours talking about nothing.
We did.
Talking about nothing but spiritual stuff, and we're like, I was like, man, we probably should hit record.
We turned the podcast recording off, and then we hit some sort of stride. And maybe none of you guys out there would have been interested in the conversation, but we were, which is why we're doing the podcast, is because we're interested in these topics. But anyway, yeah, we didn't quit for quite a few hours, and it was awesome. There was something awesome about that. But anyway, yeah, last time we didn't talk about anything of a spiritual nature whatsoever, and I think we're going to change that if you're bringing up what's the hell I'm always talking about.
I think I'm bringing it up.
Okay. Well, hell is a spiritual term. Anybody knows that. As a Christian, I really do think that it's pretty important to have a theology of hell, partly because the Bible talks an awful lot about it. Jesus himself talked an awful lot about hell, but a lot of people don't really know what whatever it is. So, pun intended.
Pun intended.
But I didn't say it. Okay. Okay. So here, if you can, Ben, then just as the devil's advocate here, describe a normal person's view of about what hell might be, who's there, and why they got there, and who on earth they're there to see for the rest of eternity.
From my experience, when you talk to anyone, especially who's not a Christian or somebody who's a young Christian, it's kind of the common, like, if they're not a Christian and they haven't really read the Bible and know anything about it, they're like, well, hell is, obviously a big fiery pit, where people just go and they burn for eternity, and the devil's down there and he's probably poking you with something or whatever while you're burning. I mean, for the most part, that's kind of what you get, and it's the kind of the devil, he's got horns and he's got hooves and he's, he kind of looks like, your Saturday morning cartoon devil.
Yeah, exactly.
And for a young Christian, they've obviously read some of the passages and they're like, well, there's, gnashing of teeth, and, they literally pull the actual verses right out. But I don't think there's a lot of understanding there.
No,
like when
probably
you tell someone like, oh, there's going to be gnashing of teeth and there's going to be, it's an eternity. Like, we can't comprehend what eternity is.
No.
I mean, well, nobody can.
No. There's nothing about, I mean, what everybody kind of says, oh, the closest thing to eternity is a perfect circle or whatever, because it keeps going around and around and around. But we're kind of enslaved to time. And so is eternity, is it a forever amount of time, or is it existing in the absence of time? And I don't really know if I know the answer to that. But here, I think you're right. I think most people have this idea of hell. Even most Christians may have this idea of hell that is in terms of the seriousness of the topic, it's probably relatively easy to dismiss because our imagery of hell, the way that we imagine it, is so divorced from our own reality that we don't see the connection. And I mean, if you were to ask most people who's in hell, well, they only think of the vilest criminals. And if you say, well, who's in heaven, they think of everybody who basically has the same general attributes that they have. And nobody believes really that they are on their way to hell. And most people, even if they, let's see, how am I trying to say this? If they, most people who probably understand that they wouldn't have a chance of getting into heaven probably don't believe in either heaven or hell.
No, not at all.
Because you'd think that they'd want to do something about it. So I find that a lot of conversations I have, even amongst Christians, they start to second guess whether there is a heaven or a hell. And I think that attitude amongst Christians especially, but in the general public, is the reason that perspective, or lack of perspective, I should say, on hell probably comes from not having an idea of how closely tied to our reality today, how closely tied it is. And so today, I guess we're going to talk about hell, why it's important to have a theology of hell. We're going to talk about, if I have it my way, what people think, like we just did,
Well,
and
how nobody seems to really. I mean, if you're a Christian and you have a basic knowledge of hell, you understand it, and you don't fear it, but you're like, there's obviously a reason why I don't want to go here. But it's weird how people don't take it seriously, and there's, people will literally say, and I'm just gonna say it. Let's all be adults. When somebody comes up to you and says like, you can go to hell, or
that's a pretty serious thing to say.
It's an insanely serious thing to say. And so like, people don't think about what they're actually, like, if people knew what they were actually saying when they say that to somebody, I can guarantee you they would take it right back.
Well, I've got an idea here. We've got here at the Left of Center podcast studios, we're in another building where there's other things going on, and we've actually got some people roaming around here right now. And I'm actually gonna try to drag somebody in here, if anybody who will actually, and I'm just gonna ask them. You know what? I'm just gonna ask them about it.
All right.
Well, here we actually paused the podcast for a couple minutes here to round some people up. Turns out that I could get one. I've got Garrett here.
Hi, Garrett.
Hi.
Garrett is 18 years old, and I'm just going to ask him a couple questions. He doesn't know what I'm going to ask him yet. And so we just want your honest, for one, we want your honest reaction to the question. And we want your honest answer based on maybe even we'll ask you what you believe other people think, and then what you think. Okay. So the topic that we're talking about is hell. And if you could, for just a minute to start us off, why don't you give us a little bit of background as to maybe your own personal life background as to why you know what you know about the subject.
I've been in church since I was a little kid, and I've gone through confirmation and just been around for a while. And my background on the subject is I know that it's just somewhere you don't want to end up, and that if you follow in your beliefs and everything, that you won't end up there.
What's your impression of what people think about hell? What do you think people believe it is?
Like if you just walked up to somebody in the street and you're like, hey, what do you think hell's about? Like, what would be their reaction?
They'd probably say it's just a fiery place that bad people go.
Based on what you know about it, what would you say it is? I mean, in as much detail as you feel comfortable expressing, what would you say? What is your, and take your time, tell us what you think it is.
I feel like it's a place that God created, that if you don't follow by his rules and you totally ignore what his beliefs are, that he'll send you to.
So based on what you know about it, why is there anything specific about why you don't want to be there in general? Just what do we know as people about the devil there, and why we wouldn't want to be there?
Because it's just like a eternal fiery furnace that you just burn in forever and ever, is from what I've understood. And it just sounds like it's just an eternal hell, pretty much what it is. It's what it's kind of shaped up to be, and that's what I think most people believe when you talk to them about it. So
And we kind of touched on that earlier. Like, we have no idea. Like, Garrett, can you imagine what an eternity is? I mean, can you even fathom how long an eternity is?
no, it's too long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our lives are so short, and it's just like, how can you possibly think of? I mean, Rob, can you even possibly fathom what an eternity is like?
Well, the hardest part about the concept of eternity for me to grasp is that it isn't necessarily that there isn't, like even if it is in a linear sense, like I was saying before, that the question is: eternity a linear stretch of time, or is it an existence, strictly or purely without time? What's even harder for me to grasp than a future linear eternity is a past eternity. And so that's kind of why I said, is it an existence without time? It almost, and I'm not trying to make it sound like there's a way to understand God and his reality as it is where he is. But that's just one of the things my mind explores, is like,
What makes you wonder? Because like our entire lifetime is probably like a millisecond, could possibly be a millisecond.
a
to God.
vapor, the Bible tells us.
Yeah, a vapor. Like, it's literally, I mean, less than a second.
The Bible says, I think it's Psalm 103, 16, 14, 16, something like that. It says man's days are like grass and we flourish, and then the wind blows over it and knows us no more once we're gone. It's kind of a stark, because it's a stark idea. But yeah, compared to eternity. And also the Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians that the troubles that we go through in our life here, that it says, for this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory. And so there's definitely a promise to the believer about eternity. And I think it's all right. I mean, I think it's all right to explore what on earth this eternity. And especially like we're talking about an eternity in hell, if there's a glorious eternal happiness there for us in Christ, then there's definitely the opposite, an eternal destiny without Christ. And so here we are exploring what an eternity of hell would be.
Actually, I want to ask Garrett one more question.
You bet.
So we've talked about, what you think hell is, what you think eternity is. What is your perception of, who do you think the devil is? Like, what is your explanation of the devil?
He's an angel that God kicked out of heaven, pretty much, that he just wants to try and get back at God and get as many people to not follow him as he can.
And do you think there's like a lot of people probably describe the devil as like kind of more like, like he's a cartoon character, like with, like he's a red guy with hooves and devil horns. Like, is that something you'd picture, or probably not?
Well, from the explanation of him being like an angel, from what I've heard in church, I feel like he's just probably an evil angel that hasn't changed. He's just what he was when he left heaven. So,
would you want to encounter the devil based on what we know about him? What would your reaction be if you were to come face to face with him? Let's say you didn't know that it was him, but how do you imagine like coming face to face with the devil?
So like, are you asking him like,
it's kind of a paradox.
If he comes out of Walmart and devil's like, hey, Gary, what's up? I'm the devil.
Well, it's almost like imagining right now, if you didn't know at the time that that's who you're going to run into, but you can perceive your reaction. I don't know, maybe this is too hard to explain the question, but let's say if based on what you know now, you come face to face with the devil, you might not know that it's him. What would you perceive your reaction like? Who is this? That's what the question is. Who do you think this person would look like if you didn't know that you were running into the devil? But based on what you know now, if you were going to run into the devil, how would you perceive? Does that make sense?
I feel like he'd be somebody that was like close to me, someone closer in my friendships or families or something, that would just be like somebody that I would trust and that'd easily manipulate me, or I don't know, something like that.
Just come up to him like, hey man, how's it going? Put his arm around you, like, how's it going, Garrett? That was basketball practice, or whatever. Right
Yeah.
on.
Yep.
Right on. I like that answer. That is actually that's a pretty good answer.
Absolutely awesome answer, and thank you, Garrett, for coming in. We'll catch you another time, hopefully soon. And in the meantime, I actually want to point a question at you, Ben. So as a Christian believer, you know, we do, you know, if we don't have a robust theology of hell, and a lot of times we don't, I mean, nobody starts off with a robust theology of hell. So I mean, what sort of thoughts enter into our minds as Christians? If you want to, and this is something Ben and I were talking about as we were prepping for the podcast, and he had a direction he was going. I was like, whoa, wait a second, dude, save it for the podcast. So what is our disposition on hell in terms of what we expect, or are we afraid of it, or things like that?
I think that we have an understanding. I think as Christians we have an understanding of it. We don't fear hell.
No, not really.
Because we know, like, because if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, then we don't fear hell. But we realize that it is real. It is something. We realize that it's something to be feared. Like, it's something that you take seriously, because it is a horrible, horrible place to have to go. But no, as Christians, I don't think that we fear it. But I think what ends up happening, though, is there's a lot of miscommunication and just ignorance about, heaven and hell, and, how you get to heaven, how you get to hell. There's just little things like you start to worry about, I committed this sin. Oh, is that bad enough that I'm going to go to hell? I committed this sin. Is that bad enough that I'm going to go to hell? And it clearly says in the Bible that there's only one unforgivable sin. But because we're human, I mean, we're 100% human. Those thoughts can creep into your mind, like, oh, I did this. You have all the time you hear about people like, I did porn. I don't know if God can ever forgive me. I committed this act. I committed this act. I killed someone.
Right.
God cannot forgive me. It's not true. He can absolutely forgive you.
Well, and I had in my construction days, I had an employee for a while who, we were talking about that sort of thing, and he distinctly, I was talking about God, and we were talking about this kind of besetting sin that he had gotten himself into frequently, and he wasn't a Christian guy, and when we were talking about forgiveness and things like that, his literal statement was, no, there's no way that God can forgive me. Now, here's where I kind of wanted to take what Ben was saying, is that, those of us who know and love God understand that it's really not hell that we're afraid of. It's actually, for those who know and love God, it's the idea of being outside of the relationship with God, that's the fear of God that drives us back to him, is not so much of, oh man, I'm going to be smote, I'm going to be sent into hell, and I'm going to burn forever. It's more like, I'm outside of the relationship. I have wandered away from my first love. I've wandered away from the God that I want to be close to. Like we talked about in the first podcast, the song, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. That's the fear, not a fear of hell. But I do remember, almost being in a cold sweat, at times in my life. Like, I'm sure that because of today, if I die tonight, I'm going to hell.
And it's, what I think it is? I think it's it's almost like a father-son relationship is what it's like. It's a parent-child relationship where you're just, all, as a Christian, sometimes you find yourself in that position where you're just like, oh man, I totally disappointed dad. And it can sometimes get to the point where you have that fear. Like you did something, like let's say you did something wrong at school and you come home and your mom's like, go to your room, wait till your dad gets home. And you have that fear of just like, oh man.
Great.
Oh, literally all hell is going to break loose when dad gets home. And so, I think that's what it is.
Like a fear of punishment.
Yeah, it's fear of punishment. It's not fear. It's, again, like we said, it's not the fear of hell. It's the fear of the disappointment that you're bringing to God.
Right. So, I mean, but as the world looks at it, like Garrett even brought, the point out that bad people go to hell, and so I guess that's, with the general understanding that we have as Christians about hell, and we're gonna take some time here over the next, probably this podcast and the next one.
There will probably be a part 2 to this.
I think we're better do a part 2 on this one, because what I'd like to get into is not necessarily that people's perception of hell is wrong, but I want to kind of extrapolate out, and I'm not going to claim that we're experts on this subject, and I really do hope between this podcast and the next one, that we get, a flood of emails or Twitter posts
Absolutely.
or whatever that from somebody who is an expert who says, you guys are either you guys are way off, or you know what, you guys are actually kind of on here.
You're on the right track. And actually, I absolutely do. And this will actually be the last time that I will put a disclaimer on this by saying, like, look, we are not amazing theologians. Like, we are not, like, literally, like, I don't know if we mentioned this before. Rob is a youth pastor,
I am.
and I am not a pastor at all. I am just a guy who believes that Jesus Christ died on a cross for my sins, and I'm totally down with that.
Man,
Like,
dude, that's
who I
worth
am.
more than the whole world.
So it's just like we are not super theologians. So we probably will say stuff that's wrong from time to time.
I'm sure we already have. But I mean, the key is that I think why this might all be relevant is because I know we're asking a good question, because naturally when you're prepping for something like a podcast like this, you do a little bit. Probably a pathetically little bit of research, but we did Google this thing, and Ben typed into Google something like
literally I typed in
what the Bible says
what
Bible
the Bible
version.
says about, and then literally the first thing that comes up is hell.
As in, Google anticipated that the question was going to be hell, about hell.
Because clearly people out there are curious about hell, whether they're Christians or non-Christians.
Right. And so we're not necessarily going to claim that we're here with the answers, but we do know, and it's verified by Google here, that we are.
Thank you, Google.
Thank you, Google. I actually know somebody who works on Google.
Do you know?
Google.
Do you know somebody who works at Google?
I do. He's maybe I shouldn't.
I actually, you know what? Don't mention it, but I will. As a quick tangent, I actually used to work for Google.
What?
I did. I worked for Google for 2 weeks.
Doing what?
I was a. They had an old piece of software, and I was part of their.
Focus group or something?
No, it was. What do you call, like? I was like a help desk person.
I have no idea.
So like people would call in and be like, I have a problem with this
Customer
software.
service or something?
Well, it was a help desk. So like they'd
desk.
call and be like, so I have a question about my Google software. Like I've got, guy would call me, hey man, like I've got this Google software that doesn't work anymore. I tried downloading this driver and this blah 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 computer speak. And I'd be like, all right, dude, do this, and this. Anyway, that's doesn't matter. Google tangent. Anyway,
okay. Well, that's cool. Were you paid directly by Google, or were you in the sort of middleman?
I was paid by the Google Corporation, and
Really?
I will say this before we get too far off track, because this is a super serious. But I think that's why we're doing a tangent, because this is a very serious topic. So we want to make sure that we're keeping it light enough to where you guys are still listening. The coolest thing about working at Google was not the money, was not I work for Google. It was the cafeteria.
You were actually at Google?
I was at a Google corporation, correct? Like I was
not on the West Coast. You were
in Fargo, North Dakota.
Fargo. Oh, that's what you were doing
building.
there.
So you walk into the cafeteria, and there is literally like you walk in and there's like little restaurants. Like it's almost like walking into a
mall food court.
Like a mall food court,
Really?
exactly. But it's not greasy, disgusting food. It's like high end,
Really?
like sit down restaurant food.
I didn't know you worked at Google.
I worked
This
at
is
Google.
cool.
Dude, it was pimp. Like, I only worked there for 2 weeks because the job sucked. I mean, it was a terrible, horrible job. And we ended up moving far away, far away from Fargo. But anywho, but you walk into this place and it's the cafeteria, and it literally is like walking to. The building is unbelievable. You walk through this Google building and it's insane. It's what you think it would be.
Sure.
And you walk in and it's just like this gigantic cafeteria, and there's literally a dude. The first thing I can remember this very specifically. You look over to your left, and there's a dude that has like a giant rack of meat, and he's like cutting off meat, like roast beef for like a sandwich.
Wow.
There's a pizza section, but it's not like Domino's or Pizza Hut. It's literally like homemade, hardcore Italian pizza. Like it was like literally going into like, for anybody who's ever been to Las Vegas, like it's like walking into like a, again, like a food court type of place, but they've got like, professional chefs that are like making this food. It's insane, dude. It really is.
So
crazy.
it sounds like the fact that the job is kind of a bummer of a job, they're doing the best they can to make up for it.
Well, and like, I don't even think it's a bummer job for everybody. I think it was a bummer
probably not.
job for me because like, the part of me that like, you sit in an office, you sit at a desk, and then you're wearing a little headset, and you literally wait for the phone to ring. and people were like, I'm having problems with this software. Okay, let me look that up. Okay, what's the problem? This isn't working. Okay, here's how to fix it. Okay, bye. But it's just like, it wasn't necessarily that. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I had just gotten kind of I was doing a job sort of like that, and then I just got kind of transferred, if you will, to Google. But it was all right. I don't want to doubt. I'm not anybody. If anybody's listening to this and you work at Google, it's not a bad place. What I did, the job that I did, sucked.
You didn't like.
I did not like at all. But
Probably perfect job for somebody.
Exactly. And actually, there are perks, and one of them was literally like, and this will go into our Pop Pact. All drinks there were free. You never had to pay for it. So like, you could literally walk up to a pop machine, just hit a button, and you could have whatever you want. You could have,
dude, that like, I gotta go like halfway across the world to some sort of resort to have something like that.
Dude, it was
thousands
insane.
of dollars.
I literally would just go up and just take like 17 pops back to my desk. And
I would so fail my pop pack there.
But they had all kinds of fancy stuff like juices and all that stuff. But anyway,
do they have a relaxation room or something like that? I've heard about those.
This one, I mean, again, it's because it's in Fargo, North Dakota, not the creme de la creme.
Like you didn't have like a full-time massage therapist.
Not like, it's not like the ones like you see like in, whether
the waterfall like coming down the wall.
Yeah, it's not like the California ones.
See, I know somebody at the California one, and it sounds awesome.
I mean, like I said, it is kind of a sight to behold when you watch. Like certain parts of it, you're just like, wow, this is pretty intense. But like, I do want to make sure. Again, this is the kind of things you're going to hear on the podcast. Like Rob and I do have ADD, like where we will literally just go. See, exactly. I don't know. Should we talk about it?
Well, not right now.
Okay, not right now. But like, we do tend to go from tangent to tangent. But we do want to make sure that we go back to touching base on.
And all this to say, basically, if anybody works at Google, chime in. We love to hear from people where, and like I said last time, we better be getting some sort of sponsorship.
Yeah,
Google better talk.
People at Google right now. People at Google,
Yeah,
what do you think about hell right now? Google people, what do you think about hell?
The guy that I know there, I want him to call in and talk to us about hell.
Do you think they could make like an application that deals with hell?
Whoa.
A Google.
You mean one that'll impress God?
A Google Hell app?
I don't think it's gonna. I think when God said in Genesis chapter 11 that he actually said that mankind, because they can all speak one language, which is kind of where we're at again with the internet technology. Now that they can speak one language, or since they can speak one language, nothing that they put their mind to will be impossible for them. So,
could you imagine, like, if somebody? I think somebody should, because like,
Google,
you know what, AOL could come out again, and that way, like, every time something happens, it's like, ding ding ding, you've got hell.
This is actually really, really like more for a tangent. This is really on topic because it sounds like a very modern version of what the whole Tower of Babel thing was all about. And I don't know. That's probably more confusing.
That's probably more confusing than anything. So
for those of you who've done some Bible study, you probably, I don't know. Tell me whether or not I'm wrong. But anyway,
1,000 emails.
You're
wrong.
You're wrong, Rob. Prove you wrong. Here you go. And I'll welcome that. So all this to say, Google has helped us understand maybe more than we thought how on the mark we are maybe with this question. So we're probably going to sign out of the podcast here in the next couple moments, but for next time we're going to talk about what hell probably, because we've got all these ideas about hell, and over the next week all you guys can contemplate, if you're listening and you care to listen to the next one, contemplate what you think hell might be, and we're going to take our best shot at explaining what the Bible has to say.
This is kind of like, it's like a cliffhanger.
A cliffhanger.
We did it. It's kind of like, it's almost like if you were alive then and you watch Star Wars, or then you watch like Empire.
The Empire Strikes Back.
Probably Empire Strikes Back, because that ends on such a downer note.
I was one when that came out, so I had absolutely no concept. I think, based on what my parents told me, I saw it in the theater.
See, for me, bringing it back to Batman, like after I saw The Dark Knight, like I was. Like, I knew they had to make a third one.
Yeah, but they kind of resolved that story.
They resolved that story, so it wasn't really a cliffhanger, but it's more like I was hanging on the edge of my seat because I'm like, I want to know what they do with the third one.
What is the best cliffhanger, as far as you're concerned, anyway?
The best cliffhanger? I don't know. See, for me, like, I admit, like, movies, like, I never like get all that excited about movies anymore. Like, I'm never like, oh, I cannot wait to see the, like, I mean, with Batman, I kind of was, because I was like, The Dark Knight was so good. You knew they were going to make a third one.
Yeah, but like I said, they resolved this.
But they resolved it to the point where, except for like he covered for Harvey Dent, and so now it was like about like, okay, well, Harvey Dent was the dink, but Batman's going to cover for him because
he's the Dark Knight.
But I don't know, cliffhanger. I think more now that like TV is so good.
I agree with that. In
TV
fact,
is
I was gonna interject a moment ago just to see. Have you seen the new British version of Sherlock?
Dude, sure. Oh,
have you seen it?
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Now, part of what makes that cliffhanger so brilliant, and because I the new one, I'm not gonna give any spoilers here, but I am like on the edge of my seat still wondering what on earth are they going to do with this. Now, part of the brilliance, I think, is that they're coming out with these like once every 3 years. We got to wait like 3 years.
It's something like, because and they do it in such a way where like each episode is like literally an hour and a half long.
It's like
so
a
it's
movie.
like mini movies.
Yep.
So that's I'm a big Sherlock. Actually, we haven't even finished. I think my wife and I have watched the first season and we're almost done with the second season. So we're moving along, but it is.
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So don't.
No, I'm not.
For me.
We got to do this. You think I got to watch Wayne's World? You got to finish Sherlock.
So what episode did we just finish? We just finished actually the lamest one so far, and we won't get into it for anybody who hasn't watched it. The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Oh
episode.
No, I love that one.
You loved that? Oh,
I think I did.
I thought it was so lame. I really did. Like, you know what? Spoilers. Like, look, this is the end of this podcast. If you haven't watched the Hound of the Baskervilles episode of Sherlock, you can turn this off, go watch it, and then listen to the end. But we're wrapping things up. But like, the idea that, or they, it's not even like I was excited. I thought they were literally going to have like
a big dog,
like a big dog. But I guess that kind of takes away from the idea that like. So far, it hasn't been ridiculous. Like everything has a reason. Like they come up with, him and Watson come up with every single detail of why each one of these scenarios happens, and it's nothing ridiculous. Like it's always like, oh, that makes perfect sense. For them to be like, it was a giant dog, like that seems kind of stupid in that.
Everything
realm.
seems really like kind of one of the things I like about Batman and Iron Man. It's not really so much that I'm never going to say that these movies are realistic, but it doesn't quite take you fully into Iron Man 3. There was nothing realistic about that, but what I'm talking about is the idea.
Hold on, we have to do a quick tangent. Remember what you're talking about, though. Remember what you're talking about.
Write it down. Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3,
So
and
important.
I'm probably going to get some hate mail from this, and if you want to send me hate mail, you can do so at mailbag@leftofcenterpodcast.com.
You're just inviting it.
I'm inviting it because, like, look, I did not like Iron Man 3.
I didn't either.
I did not like it, and it wasn't because the Mandarin. Like, first of all, Ben Kingsley was awesome.
That was pretty good.
He was awesome, but oh man, dude, look, I'm sorry. Like, we talked about this once, didn't we? We were talking about Transformers. Like, we just don't care about
whether or not there's plot.
I don't care. It's Michael Bay. Who cares? Like, I just want to see robots beat the crap out of each other. But with Iron Man 3, I want to see the dude in the suit. I want to see him.
He was never in the suit, was he?
He was hardly ever in the suit,
except to kind of play around a little bit.
In the first part of it, he is, and then like the suit kind of gets all messed up, so he has to fix it. But that's when he runs into that little boy, and he spends like the next hour, hanging out with this kid and like. Fixing the suit. And look, I get it. It's a nice little story.
I didn't like anything about what they did with that movie.
I didn't care for it. Like the last 10 minutes were pretty all right because like it was like all the Iron Man suits and everything's blowing up and like and that was cool. But like I was not a fan. Like I wasn't even a big fan of 2, to be honest with you.
The first one has got to go down as one of the best.
Okay, first
action,
of all, you know what? Fine. Send me hate mail if you guys loved Iron Man 3, but you cannot deny that Iron Man 1 is the reason why you got Dark Knight.
Way better.
It's the reason why
Dark
you got
Knight, really?
It's the reason why you got the new Spider-Mans. It's the reason why you got the Avengers, because like it worked. Like they were like, all right, we're gonna try this Iron Man thing. We're not sure about it. And we got Robert Downey Jr., who nobody had heard of in years.
That's true. He just come out back
from
like,
it was some
sort of extended vacation.
It was a gutsy movie because like Jon Favreau came in, and he directed the crap out of it. Just awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Robert Downey Jr. comes in, knocks it out of the park. He is Tony Stark.
Mhm.
And so like that movie catapulted, like instantly they were like, yep, we got a moneymaker. And so they just, boom, let's put out I mean, like,
Well, I don't blame them for putting on. I just think they ran. I mean, because they obviously made a lot of money with Iron Man 3,
Well,
and
think
that's
about-
what they're doing it for.
well, think about it this way, like Iron Man 1, if it had sucked,
they wouldn't have made it.
they wouldn't have made it 2. They might have,
Maybe
might
they
have,
made it.
they might have even went like years without making a comic book. Like, this obviously did not
It
work.
set up the Avengers. It set up Thor. It set up.
It set up
you know.
Guardians of the Galaxy,
True.
which
Who would make that movie?
Which only hardcore comic book readers know about. Which I have to admit, and I'm admitting this, like,
Mhm.
we haven't seen it, and that really bums me. I really want to see it.
We have a mandate planned with our friend Josh. It's kind of we got to pull this together and
We gotta
actually
pull
make
it
that
together.
happen.
We need to watch it. In fact, it'll probably be out of theaters by the time we actually see it.
Shoot.
But I want to see it. And again, hate mail
Yeah.
to mailbag@leftofcenterpodcast.com.
Well, and the reason why I brought this up in the first place was because there does seem to be some element of realism possible in the fact that you got both. Well, in Batman, you've got a multi-billionaire with a research and development wing of his company with the most brilliant scientist that works for him. So he's got limitless funds, and his scientist there has limitless imagination and all the engineering capability to pull any imaginary idea out. And so, I mean, a lot of the stuff like that fabric, a lot of the stuff is rooted in reality. I've heard that that's actually the thing about Batman, is that they've always used something that's in the works. Maybe the technology never does develop, but they're actually only basing their gadgets and on all this stuff on something that's actually out there.
Well, to me, Batman makes sense. Like, to me, it's like
Batman,
if you have enough money, you could be Batman.
Well, and the Tony Stark thing, I mean, if you're saying, well, he's the most brilliant, what kind of engineer is he anyway? But
He's in every kind of engineer, it seems like.
so you get the most brilliant engineer of his kind with unlimited funds, and I kind of like that idea in that sense, that who are we to say that that's not realistic, because we don't know the limits of what this crazy genius might be able to come up with. And so the realism of Batman and Iron Man kind of appeals to me, but that's kind of where I'm saying they went wrong with Iron Man. Where did we start with this anyway?
I have no idea. But again, this is just proof. Again, you're getting ADD podcasting from two dorky guys. But we're going to wrap this
guess
up.
I am ADD. I didn't think I was.
Oh, you totally are.
Am I?
Well, you know how to add, subtract, all that stuff.
Add?
But
Oh.
but anyway, this is going to be part 1. We obviously went off on a tangent. But we're going to come back with part 2 of What's the Hell Rob's talking about. So I am Ben Knight.
I'm Rob Royce, still kind of wondering where we got off.
ADD.